Before we get started, I want to thank our first partner, Response Ready Medical. Response Ready Medical, bringing our customers the best quality training and equipment for the worst case scenario. Response Ready Medical's vision is to be the leading provider of emergency preparedness solutions across the United States, empowering communities, organizations, and individuals to respond confidently and preserve life during critical moments. Offering same-day certification, all Response Ready Medical classes are instructed by nationally registered and state-licensed firefighter, paramedics, law enforcement officers, and hospital staff. Classes currently being offered by Response Ready Medical include CPR and AED, CPR, AED, and first aid, emergency trauma care, child and babysitting safety, CABS, backcountry medicine, and wilderness first aid. Your premium partner in emergency preparedness, Response Ready Medical. Welcome to the Pursuing Freedom Outdoors podcast, a place where backcountry warriors can share their stories of grit, service, healing, and wilderness adventures. I'm your host, Tom Walton, Marine Corps veteran, full-time cop, and aspiring hunting and fishing guide. Join me and others as we journey from the hood to the woods in pursuit of freedom in the outdoors. All right, everybody. Welcome to the Pursuing Freedom Outdoors podcast. I'm your host again, Tom Walton, and today I am joined by Don Goode. And Don, I'm saying that right. Is it Goode or Goode?
Goode.
Goode. All right. I had a buddy who was similar. So Don Goode of Backcountry Bistro. He's also an Army veteran. But he is the founder and owner of the Backcountry Bistro, which specializes in high-quality, high-nutrition, great-tasting freeze-dried meals for anyone adventuring in the outdoors that I can't wait for him to talk about. I'll let you all know right now that I ordered a ton of his products to take with me on my elk and mule deer hunt next week. So I am really excited to get those out in the field and have some good food. Also joined today by Don's really good buddy and fellow Army veteran, Tyler Valentine. And both these men are veterans, which is fantastic. Thank you both for your service. They're avid and passionate outdoorsmen, and they recently came here to my home state of Idaho to do a DIY elk hunt. And I can't wait to hear some of the stories that they have from the mountains here in Idaho. So without further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and start here. And if you guys just want to introduce yourselves and just include, like your name, you can, as much information as you want about yourself, but also like how you got started in the outdoors, hunting and fishing. We can just start with Don.
All right. Thanks. Happy to be here and everyone listening. My name is Don Goode. I was in the Army for 10 years. I've been out for 2. Just finished up an MBA, and along this journey, I decided to start a small business startup, Backcountry Bistro. We'll talk probably more about later on how it started. And I got into hunting. It was something I always wanted to do, but never had an opportunity growing up. And when I came back from my first deployment in 2014, I got into bow hunting and whitetails. I was stationed at Fort Hood, Texas, and got into duck hunting, and kind of the rest is history. I ended up getting stationed up in Alaska, which further spread the bug to Western backcountry style hunting. And last few years have kind of been me dipping my toe into that and combining passions with what I like to do in Backcountry Bistro.
Fantastic, man. What kind of hunts, real quick, did you get to do when you're up in Alaska? Because that's about my favorite place other than Idaho.
A caribou, couple moose hunts, some early season waterfowl, grouse. There's a ton of grouse up there. I was stationed up in the Fairbanks area. You can kind of get after whatever you want, big game, small game. We didn't really have that much time in our units because the hunting seasons up there are pretty short, August and September, and that's the best time to be out in the field training as it's starting to get cold from the summertime. I didn't really get to do as much hunting up there as I would have hoped. I've done more hunting up there since leaving Alaska, both this year and 2 years ago with Tyler. It's a giant state, so honestly, you kind of just stick to where you're at and get to know that area. Then eventually, when you get to know the system, if you want to go on a goat hunt, for example, you can put in a draw for a specific area, and it's a lot easier once you know a few areas. At least to have a base camp where you're flying into.
Yeah, I have some buddies that live up there. Most of them were sent up there with the military and just never left. Uh, and I went on a caribou hunt with them a couple of years ago, and they just say like a lot of Alaska hunting is just being willing to drive 7 hours and then hike 7 hours and then hike another 7 hours the next day,
Yeah.
and then and now you're in your sheep spot. So like, and that's probably
It's
like a pretty
it's a
short
lot.
a short travel, but yeah, a lot of travel and a lot of logistics. But man, it's sure is epic place up there. I love it. So right on, man. Well, again, thanks for your service, Don. Appreciate it, man. Tyler, what about you, man? A little bit about your background, hunting and fishing, and all that stuff.
All right, my turn. So my name's Tyler, from the small town of Houston, Texas, specifically Richmond, Texas, in the southwest portion of the greater Houston area. I've known Don for, man, uh, over 10 years now. We met in college when we were in school at Texas A&M, and really got to know each other in Alaska, actually, on on my first Alaskan hunt trip that I went on. So, real quick before I get into that, I got into hunting at a young age. My dad used to take me out waterfowl hunting specifically. I remember my first hunt was a goose hunt with him, and it was either he took me out to carry on the family tradition of taking your boy out and showing him how to hunt and how we harvest animals, and we eat what we harvest, or he just needed someone to spread his decoys out for him and then retrieve him at the end of the hunt trip. But either way, I was fortunate in that my dad got me introduced to hunting at a young age. He taught me how to shoot a BB gun real early on. And then we'd actually go out duck hunting, and he had the shotgun, I had the BB gun. I thought I was doing something out there shooting with a BB gun, but even though I wasn't, it was a good time. And spent some time out there, learning how to hunt, but more importantly than that, learning about my dad, learning, you know, life lessons out there in the duck blind, the goose blind. If you hear any noise, that's my dog over here. She's scratching herself and whining.
My
But
dog's doing the same thing, man. So no problem.
yeah, all right. Uh, let's see. He took me deer hunting probably around the time I was 12, 13, and I shot a 4 point whitetail. And from then on, I was hooked, man. From then on, like the adrenaline rush that I got and the high from harvesting that animal and then uh, field dressing it, taking it home, getting it processed and eating that was amazing for however old I was, 12, 13-year-old boy to experience. And so got to hunt with him growing up. And then I'd say I got into elk hunting when I got stationed at Fort Carson, Colorado. Uh, so that was right after flight school. So I'm probably, I don't know, 25 years old, 26 years old, getting stationed at Fort Carson. And there's elk running around those mountains, and there's nothing like that down in Texas. I'm listening to Joe Rogan podcast. He's talking about elk hunting and how great it is, and he's got Steve Rennell on his podcast, and I'm learning about this amazing animal that's way bigger than a whitetail that I haven't been hunting my whole life. So I get into it and really cut my teeth into elk hunting in Colorado. Uh, don't kill anything for the first couple hunts that I'm up there. Learned a lot of stuff the hard way in the mountains. Coming back empty-handed, eating tag soup year after year. And then finally, through enough trial and error, I'm able to make it happen. I think in 2019, that's when I killed my first elk. It was a 4x4 bull. I was hooked on elk hunting at that point. Just for whatever reason, really enjoyed being in nature and being outdoors. in the woods, whether by myself or with my buddies. And something that I've always wanted to do, but never really got to up to that point, was do a caribou hunt up in Alaska. And I remember I had seen that Don had gone caribou hunting previously when he was stationed up there. And so I asked him for some pointers. And initially I was going to go by myself on the Hall Road hunt, which is the same road the ice road truckers use. Mm-hmm. And Don was talking to me and giving me a lot of great advice on, like, hey, this is what you should think about logistically for the hunt. You know, this is the kind of vehicle that you need. This is what the Hall's road's like. This is, you know, the towns that are on the way from Fairbanks up to Dead Horse are, which there aren't any except one.
Yeah, Coldfoot.
Yeah, there's one. Yeah, and you're going to pay, by the way, about $9 per gallon of gas for it.
But you know what, man? The buffet there in Coldfoot is impeccable. I thought, I don't know if it's like, I thought it was good going and coming. So, like, yeah, that was my highlight of Coldfoot, Alaska, was the buffet there.
Oh, it's one of the best buffets you'll ever go to, because you're going to it half starving, probably.
Yeah,
especially if you're coming back from a hunt trip. Anyway, I think about 6 months, 8 months before I'm going on the hunt, Don says, you know, Tyler, I don't know if it's a great idea for you to go by yourself. And, you know, he asked if he could join me. I said, of course. I was floored that he wanted to come along with me. And, you know, obviously there's some risk there going into the Alaskan backcountry without knowing the other individual that you're going with. I mean, we had known each other in college, but we weren't great friends. We were more of acquaintances. But we had spoken on the phone for, you know, hours at a time, and, you know, gotten to know each other a little bit over the phone. And, you know, we both had the same interests, and we decided, you know what, we're going to take this risk and see how each other works out and hunts. And we had an awesome trip, which I'm sure we're going to get into. And from then, not only did we come back with meat, with caribou, but we came back with memories, and that was the inception, I think, of Backcountry Bistro. So that's kind of where we are now.
Nice, great tie-in. Quick question: I was just talking to one of my buddies that I went on that hunt up to Alaska with. Caribou or elk, man? What tastes better?
Man, I think it's elk, hands down. I think caribou is a little gamier than elk from my experience. Elk just doesn't have the same gamey taste, and I'm kind of like you, Thomas. That game taste doesn't really bother me, but elk is so clean that you really don't have a whole lot of it in there. So it's just a delicious animal. But they're both delicious, you know.
They are, man. You got an opinion, Don?
Yeah, elk hands down.
All right. My buddy was a vote for caribou. I don't know, man. I thought they were both delicious. I kind of go neutral on it. My wife she'll vote for elk. But we all agree caribou is absolutely delicious no matter how you shake it out. So, well, right on, man. I'm glad you guys had a good trip. And just real quick, Tyler, are you still in the service?
Yeah, so I am still in the Army. So I've been in Army aviation for the past 10 years, since the inception of my career back in 2014, basically up until June of this year. And then I branch transferred into acquisitions. And now I'm doing something completely different, still in the Army. I'm on the acquisition side, and I'm working on a software project for the next generation of collective simulators for the Army.
All right on, man.
Sounds exhilarating.
So, aviation. What did you fly?
So I was an Apache driver by trade. Flew the Delta model up until 2017. Yeah. And then flew the Echo model. I was stationed at Fort Carson, Colorado after flight school from 2017 till 2022. Man, so I did my lieutenant time there, my company commander time there, and I was fortunate enough to get a line company. I was able to take that company downrange. We had a deployment in initially Iraq, and then we retrograded to Kuwait for the back half of that deployment. And then I got the opportunity to take a Gray Eagle company, which is a UAV So it's one of the larger fixed-wing UAVs that the Army uses. So I was commander of Apache Line Company, then the Gray Eagle Company, and then I PCS to Fort Rucker, where I became an instructor pilot. I did that gig for a little bit, and then I took command of the Warrant Officer Basic Course, which is the initial training all warrant officers go through prior to flight school.
Man, that's a lot. I feel like when they made the recruiting commercial, all the things you can do in the Army, like you've done all of them. That's pretty awesome, man. Again, thanks for your service. Question for you before we move back over to Don. I mean, line company, so right, infantry stuff and Apache pilot, dangerous jobs. I'm assuming that you knew what the chances of you going to places like Iraq and Afghanistan when you joined. I figured they're probably pretty high. I was,
Oh, absolutely.
the listeners know, but I was in the Marine Corps. I was an infantry Marine. Not that exciting of a career, but why, despite all the potential dangers that you knew you were probably going to get into, man, why serve? Why go into the Army? Why serve? What is it that drove you to do that?
I don't know. I guess I'm just wired differently. I'm not sure what it is. So the line, when I say line company, I don't want to get that confused with, anything like what the infantry does, because we were sleeping in GP mediums the whole time, right? So we're not in foxholes or anything like that. Like what you do is a whole other level. I want you to know that while we were in Iraq, we were prima donnas out there, and we had our we had our amenities both while in a deployed atmosphere, and then even when we were doing field training exercises or CTC rotations or whatever else. So yeah, I wanted to do my part. And I was, while I went to a combat zone, I'll say that I was fortunate to have that experience, and I'm thankful for it.
Right on, man. Thank you.
Tell him the story of how flat operations just about seized because the Keurig went down.
Oh man. All right. So there I was, right? And this is just going to show you like the kind of amenities that we had, and how like you can't even compare what we did to what anyone in the infantry or in the Marines were doing in the same area of operations. So this is my first deployment to Iraq. This was 2019. And initially we were there for the first half. We were staging out of Erbil, Iraq, which is a very built up area that we had. And we had, that was like our base of operations. It was at the Erbil airport, and we had full DFAC while we were out there. Gym. We had all the maintenance amenities that we could ask for. We were staying in air-conditioned shoes. It was a very good area to be stationed at for the first half of the deployment when, it's 110 degrees outside. And then later half of the deployment, we were, my company was split in half, and my platoon was transferred to, what was it? Al Assad. Yeah, Al Assad Air Base, which it was an Air Force base, and we still had quite a few amenities, but because of where we were at, we basically picked up overnight and took everything that we could either fit in our helicopter or fit in a Chinook in one trip with us from Erbil to Al Assad. So I threw my bags in a Chinook and then flew an Apache down to Al Assad one day, essentially, after planning for about a week. And there were tents set up for us, and that was about it. That's what we fell into. So we went from staying in air-conditioned shoes to, GP mediums on top of cots. And there was a DFAC there, but, because we were running QRF or wide area security, we were going and getting our food and then bringing it back to the tent and basically spending all of our time around this area that we were at, so we could get to the helicopters quickly if we needed to. During the day, you'll have maintainers going out, maintaining the aircraft, doing maintenance things, just to keep the aircraft going and fighting off, the small maintenance issues, the environment, and everything else, and bringing the aircraft down. We So in the Army, I feel like the backbone is caffeine and tobacco, right? Um, there was, in this small base of operations that we had, the only area we were able to get caffeine from, unless you literally took a bus to um, the PX to get energy drinks. The only thing that we had was a Keurig. And this thing was working overtime, man. I'm telling you, like we had a ton of coffee pods, and it was constantly in use because we were running 24-hour operations. Because we were constantly like there's two 12-hour shifts, right? So you had one or 12-hour shift from midnight to noon, and then noon to midnight. And so this thing was constantly being used all 24 hours of the day, and it was being used and abused. I want to say probably about 2 months into us being there, with this Keurig being used constantly, someone goes to put a pod in. Oh, and let me back up. This Keurig is not like, it's not like some grandioso Keurig that you're going to probably have at your house or my house. Like, this is something that looks like came out of a hotel. It's a single serve Keurig where you pour the water in that's going to be turned into coffee. You put the pod in, and then that same water comes out. It only has enough it only has a big enough container for 1 cup of coffee. So very small Keurig. This thing's working overtime. Someone goes to put a pod in and press the button for it to go, and it's not working. And I'm telling you, efficiency like halted. Maintenance stopped on the aircraft because, the NCOs couldn't get their caffeine. The pilots couldn't get their caffeine. And so where's the energy going to come from, right? And so before everyone starts panicking, our senior maintenance test pilot, who had at that time about 25 years in the Army, and could have retired years ago, but was just out there because he loved it, literally got off of the $35 million aircraft that he was working on to walk into the tent because he heard about the chaos that was going on inside of our makeshift GP medium. And the maintainers told him what was happening. And so he halted maintenance on this aircraft so that he could go get his soldering kit, come back, and start doing surgery on this Keurig to make the wires connect so that this thing would start working. And after about an hour, he got it back up. Keurig was FMC, and we were back to making coffee. But I just think it's hilarious that even though we were running wide area security for the area, and granted, we did have aircraft that could fly, it was just one that was down, that the Keurig was important enough that we needed to pull the senior maintenance test pilot off of an aircraft to get it repaired.
Hey, priorities, brother. I got it.
Yeah, that's right.
So, yeah, that's awesome, man. That's funny. So Don, man, you're out now, but you were in the military, and just real briefly, what did you do?
I was a logistics officer. I started off maintenance or what they call ordnance at the time. They sorted the logistics officers into either ordnance, which is maintenance or munitions, or EOD if you went that route, transportation, and quartermaster, which is supply. But we pretty much do any job, and once we became captains, it was the combined logistics career course. It's now just straight logistics, so I do it all. But I started off, my first job was I was a maintenance, like a maintenance support platoon. So we had all the mechanics, generator mechanics, guns, big guns, small guns, radios, nods, thermals, things like that. All the way, up to, we were in a striker brigade, so striker brigade mechanics, and a couple Hotel 8 guys. They were specialized to be the wrecker crews, wrecker operators. In combat, like if a vehicle got blown up, they'd go pick them up. In the field, of break down and go pick them up. So I did that, bounced around a couple jobs as a lieutenant, and out of Fort Hood. Went to Afghanistan almost immediately. I was pretty much in Afghanistan within a year of commissioning, and was in Fob Shank, RC East Afghanistan. I didn't really know what was going on, as long as like Afghanistan was concerned. 2014, I didn't know anything. I a butter bar with a platoon, and we were closing down the base. My platoon was basically muscle. Sure, Tyler knows all about that. We were just going around building, like just closing stuff down, like packing stuff up into containers. I was like doing the paperwork and supervising and getting it out of there, et cetera, et cetera. So, we were there, I don't know, 4 months or so. Then moved to Bagram Airfield, which is a totally different world compared to the small FOB we were on. And I was in Afghanistan about 6 months total. Went to the captain's career course, then went to Alaska. That's where I held my command up there. And after my command, went to Iraq in 2020. And that's when it got a little spicy because we killed Soleimani, and the Iranians retaliated. It was some ballistic missiles. And COVID hit. The GRF was sent, so the 82nd got spun up, sent within 72 hours. We were delayed coming back because of COVID, so it was a huge mess.
Yeah.
But I was an operations officer, so I actually was in the know and in the higher level briefings, so that was pretty cool in comparison to being, second lieutenant, fresh in the Army and not knowing anything about the Army to almost a decade later, knowing a lot, being in the meetings with the generals and kind of understanding the big picture and the why. It was pretty cool. But yeah, it was interesting times with COVID, being deployed during COVID. They closed down the gym. One of the few things that motivates the Joes, and you can't work out in the gym, so you can go work out on the track. But you got to wear your kit because, threat of rockets. Also, pollution. It's just horrible. The air quality is horrible.
Yep.
And after a few days of it, it's like, I'm just not going to. I don't want cancer. I don't want to get anything worse than what I probably already have.
Too late. Yeah. We're all screwed.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, dude, that's pretty wild. I mean, COVID was crazy, dude. I was obviously working here in the States, and it was definitely a really, really weird time for my profession too, because we got told don't do anything and handle all of our calls. Like don't stop cars, don't stop people, and handle calls by phone if you can, unless it's like life-threatening emergency. So that was a weird time, man. But yeah, why did you decide to serve? Why did you decide to go in the Army and do what you did?
Well, I joined JROTC in high school, and I really enjoyed it. So I think that's kind of what spurred it. Maybe a sense of something bigger than myself. But also, it was a guaranteed path to go to college with a scholarship. I was hoping to get a scholarship because my mother was Colombian. She's Colombian, so I come from family immigrant. So I was a first-generation college student. So I was going to have to pay my way to school. And I enjoyed, junior ROTC. And I wanted to go to the best military education, but I didn't want to go to the academy and be like fully like held down for a few years. They're pretty strict for a few years. A&M, they're very strict. It's very tough, but you got a lot more freedoms. A lot more free weekends. So that appeased me. But I was originally I was from Texas. I just lived in Florida, and my dad lived in Texas. So it was an easy transition out of high school to go to Texas. I did end up getting a scholarship. So I ended up at A&M, the Corps Cadets. It was a good time. I really enjoyed it.
Deal, man.
It was a good experience. Very good experience. Definitely prepped me for the military. Yeah, the military was a little, I don't know, easier, I guess, than I envisioned.
Mm-hmm.
Less disciplined. We had some pretty good instructors at A&M, so definitely kind of, you think like every single NCO was going to be like your instructors, and the reality was far from that. So, I'm sure Tyler has had his fair share of having to deal with that, especially at a young age. as a leader, being in charge of a lot of people, it kind of matures you pretty quickly, because you kind of got to figure it out. If you don't have mentors, or you're not comfortable talking to someone, it's, you know, getting thrown in the fire basically is how I felt a lot of the time.
Yeah, man. That being a young lieutenant, I didn't really appreciate what my lieutenants were going through. I just was like bitter towards them, unfortunately. Like, oh man, like great, this new lieutenant's gonna make me march to the poison oak because he doesn't want to walk on the trail, and like, but
Yeah.
it was it is, man. I mean, you're just taking young dudes out of school, and I mean, for us, they were in charge of infantry, Marines, and that's a big deal. And I can only imagine the pressure that they felt doing that. I know that. I mean, even when I was a sergeant in the Marine Corps, I was not ready to lead a platoon. If I had been put in that position, I wasn't mature enough until probably well after I was in the Marine Corps to do what you guys have to do right out of college. So, yeah, that's cool, man. That's awesome. Well, again, dude, thank you both for your service. I've said it a bunch of times, but I just think it's important. It's an important part of my podcast is the service aspect, and I always appreciate it. So, thanks for telling your stories. So yeah, man, we kind of met. You hit me up on Facebook, so thanks for reaching out. And I was telling Tyler, I feel like I had been somehow made aware of your product already. I don't know if it was because of Facebook or it was in my research looking for better products for backcountry food. But I feel like when you hit me on my Backcountry Bistro, I was like, either that or you just came up with such a great name. I just had assumed I'd already heard it. But yeah, but I was really excited when you.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. I was just excited when you reached out and you asked if I'd be interested in talking to you guys. And obviously the answer is like, absolutely, man. I want to hear about Backcountry Bistro. So yeah, like, why don't you go ahead and just start with who you are as a company, or which sounds like right now mostly it's Don Goode, and how you started and where you're going.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, I guess I didn't really mean to start Backcountry Bistro, but it really began a little over 2 years ago on a hunt with Tyler. That caribou hunt that he mentioned earlier. It actually began a few years prior to that when I was stationed in Alaska from 17 to 20. So when I learned about freeze-dried meals, I was in logistics. Part of our job was getting the MREs out. And the MREs up there were winter MREs. They were in white packs instead of brown packs. But the only difference was the main meal was it was a Mountain House, a smaller. It was like kind of a cubed up version of it. And up in Fairbanks in the wintertime, you get like 50, 60 below in the winter. So we have those, and because you could always boil water, we use like these 8-man like Arctic man TV tents and these old MSR like kerosene stoves and boil water, blah blah blah. Well, the Mountain House meal is way better than the regular MREs, so that's how I got turned on or learned about freeze dried meals. When I was in the field, I'd take an ATV or snow machine, call them snow machines up there, snowmobiles out, and I'd take that in a jet boil and I'd have lunch for an all-day outing. Leading up to this hunt, I was looking at meal plans because we were going to go like 7, maybe 14 days off, like, unsustained. And I didn't really want to spend $500 on like Peak or Mountain House. I was going to see about making summer sausage. I was processing all my own game, maybe some pita bread, some hard cheese, and then supplement with some meals. And I ended up coming up on an article about someone freeze drying food for their hunts, and which I was confused. I thought they meant like dehydrating, like a dehydrator for jerky. So I looked further into it and found out you could buy a freeze dryer, but pretty expensive. All right, I could save X amount of money, doing it for this hunt. All right, it'd take 10 years to do, make that money back. I could do it for emergency purposes, but at a certain point, you got too much food. And so I looked at other options, and I was like, well, I'm going to buy it anyways, and just to kind of see what I can do. So I had enough food for myself and extras for Tyler on that caribou hunt, and that's where I was eating pretty good, and he was eating Mountain House and Peak, and I let him have. I actually hadn't even had Peak, so I traded him some like one of my meals for Peak because I wanted to try them because I knew they were newer. Um, when I was in Alaska, they weren't as well known, so I hadn't had them yet, and I'll let Tyler take over on that because he was the one who mentioned that maybe I should sell them.
Yeah, they were. I think there were two parts that I noticed about his meal that it kind of outshined some of the other ones that I had bought because I had Peak and then I had another one. I don't remember what it was either, but I just bought meals at like REI that sounded good to me. The first was, and the one that mattered to me most was I'm a bigger guy, and so I eat a lot, especially when I'm hiking all day.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it's not unusual to eat like two Peak meals for dinner. Have essentially two meals that are freeze dried so that I feel satisfied at the end of the day. But with Don's freeze dried food at the time, he didn't even come up with a name yet. There was more of it there. It was obviously like he could put however much he wanted into a bag, so it was just a larger quantity of food. So I felt satisfied with that, and then it just tasted better. Uh, he's obviously cooking at home, doing whatever he wanted to the recipe, and it was just better tasting food, and I enjoyed it. So yeah, it was. Uh, I'm trying to. So there were like two parts to that hunt, right? So we were on the Hall Road, which I don't. It sounds like you're familiar with the Hall Road hunt,
Yeah, I've been up
but
on the Hall
just
Road.
for
Yep. But
just
yeah,
for
for
the
listeners.
audience. So
Yep.
the way that it works is there's a road that goes from Fairbanks, Alaska, somewhere in the middle of the state, all the way up to Dead Horse, which is right on the north slope, basically where the Arctic Ocean touches the north slope of Alaska. And there's a hunt that you can do along that road's corridor where either side of that road, within 5 miles of the road, is bow only. And this was a caribou hunt, so we had caribou tags. And so we were able to hunt bow only within 5 miles of the road. And then once you get outside of 5 miles, you can use a rifle. We hunted it was about a 10-day hunt. We hunted the first 5 days within 5 miles of the road, driving that road and then spotting caribou and stalking them. And uh, we killed one with a bow within 5 miles of the road. We're about 2.5 miles off the road. And then the last 5 days, we really hadn't seen a herd or very much caribou the first 5 days. And so we thought that we would have the best odds if we hiked out 5 miles, 5 miles away from the road so that we could use a rifle. And in order to do that, because of the terrain, we were going to hike everything in because 5 miles doesn't seem like a lot when you're hiking in Idaho or
Mm-hmm.
Florida or Colorado. Even in the mountains, it's actually not that much. I mean, how many miles were we hiking a day when we were in Idaho? Like we probably did between 5 and 8, 5-10 miles a day. Elk hunting this past year, which wasn't it was just a normal thing. It was like, hey, we're gonna do 5 to 10 miles tomorrow, right? But when you're hiking on tundra, there's just something different about the North Slope in Alaska because the tundra is mostly flat, right? It's mostly flat, but it's spongy. There's not much vegetation, right? So you can watch your dog run away for a week up there in the North Slope because
Mm-hmm.
the highest vegetation you're going to get is a couple feet high. So when you're on the road and it's mostly flat and you're able to look, pretty far out with your binoculars and you could see caribou, 3-4 miles out. but they're hard to get to, and you may not be able to get to them. There were a few times where we saw caribou across the Sag River that we couldn't get to because we didn't have a means to cross the river. And then there were times on the other side, the west side of the haul road, that we would see caribou 4 or 5 miles out. But there would be streams that weren't very wide. They'd maybe be 4 or 5 feet wide, but they were deep, and they were rushing so fast that we really couldn't safely traverse them. We would add maybe another 5-6 miles to our trip to try to get around this stream or get to a safe place where we could traverse it to get to those caribou. And so there were times where we could see caribou that, like if it was an elk hunt, it's on, 5 miles away, we'll get to them. But just because of the terrain and how difficult it was to traverse across this tundra and walk over the muskeg, we just couldn't get to them. So like, obviously the tundra is spongy, but it's also, you're stepping over muskeg, which is like a bowling ball on a stem. And so every step that you take is very calculated, because if you step on that bowling ball, that muskeg, wrong, then you could strain an ankle or land on something wrong, and then now you're hurting and you possibly ruin your hunt there. So hiking the 5 miles off the haul road is a very deliberate action that took some planning, and so we brought all our food in on that one 5 mile hike. And it was, I'll tell you what, after that first day on that hike in, we ate good that night. I had my 2 peak meals after that, and then Don started letting me have his scraps, right? So he's eating his meal. He's eating one meal for my 2, and it's obviously his that he made. And he's still got some leftover, and I'm like, oh, that looks pretty good. And he says, you want to try some? And I'm like, yeah, because I already ate both of my meals. And I'm trying it, and it's delicious. And he's able to obviously sustain himself. He's satisfied, and he's given me, what he has left over. And I'm like, this is pretty good food right here. And I think that was, the point where I said, I thought it was good enough. I jokingly told him, you should sell this. And it sounds like, I was onto something, because here he is. But that was from my understanding, the inception of Backcountry Bistro.
So Don, you're sitting here like, man, dude, my buddy loves his food, and you're right that there's a whole nother level of difficult to the tundra. I can tell you, my Caribou pack out was one of the hardest pack outs. It was like 3 miles, maybe 3.5 miles. But yeah, that tundra just whoops your butt, man. No doubt about it. And
yeah, there's like nothing you can do about it. You can't quit. No. Like, you still have to get to the truck. Like it's just, man, it'll really make you. You're gonna be in your head for a long time.
You
those
are.
Pack outs.
Yeah,
it's like the worst thing I've ever done in the military. I hated rock marches, and like it's like doing a rock march uphill, and it's like raining, and you have all your gear on,
and you're just always like
slipping. Yeah, it's just like, it's awful, and it's just you're
always knee deep
in. You get comfortable, like it's just
you're wet all the time.
Knee deep in muck.
There was a time where we were hiking, and there was something ahead of us, and it was moving slowly, and I kind of squinted because it was probably a couple miles away, but again, like, you can see it forever on the tundra, and I'm looking at this thing, and it's big and brown, and so I'm thinking, there's a bear. That's a bear coming after us. And so I tell Dawn immediately, I'm like, hey, I think there's a bear ahead of us. And so he stops, and he's looking with his binoculars. I don't know what you thought initially, Dawn, but I thought it was a bear for a while, and then it gets a little bit closer, and we realize it's a muskox, which you still don't want to mess with, right? But thankfully, it wasn't a bear. Anyway, we're standing off from it, and we're trying to walk away from it, but we're walking you can't run. We're walking as fast as we can, and we're not walking faster than this thing is. It doesn't care about us. So if this muskox wanted to charge us, or if that was a bear and it had a problem with us, like, we would have had to have shot it. And I didn't have a 300 Win Mag with me either, so I don't know how much good I would have done with a 6.5 Creedmoor on a grizzly. But yeah, you're not moving fast up there either. It is an arduous trek.
Yeah, yeah. So, with his feedback on that trip, what was your kind of next, aha moment? Where did it come together for you?
Well, so I got out of the Army. I took a few months off after that hunt before I started an MBA. And I had started renting out my RV. This is kind of when my entrepreneur side started coming out. I was renting out my RV during COVID in Virginia. My wife was pregnant, and it was decent money for what we paid for the camper. So I was like, we can have this thing, like, pay itself off or mostly, subsidize it. So when I thought about that with the freeze dryer, I was like, maybe I'll make a couple meals and sell to some buddies. And I was like, I'm sure Tyler would buy some. I had a couple buddies. And I was like, all right, yeah, it'll pay the machine off. And I started an MBA, and I was like, all right, let me legitimize this and start doing all like the proper tax work and permits to start learning. And it was about a year ago. I did my first, I guess, R&D run for like 2 months. I had a couple recipes, and I had one buddy who was going to test them out, but I had a bunch of extra meals. And I was like, man, I don't know what I'm going to do with these. And I went on a Facebook group, a pretty big one. I didn't even look at the size of it. And I posted on there about beta testers. And this was like late at night, and I had an overwhelming response. And I ended up selling out of everything. Within 48 hours, I made $1,500, which basically paid off almost half of the machine that I originally purchased. And I said, oh, wow. Okay, well, let's wait for the feedback. There's obviously some interest out there, and, as far as testing the market, I've been an MBA almost for a year at this point, so I kind of understood how things work. And feedback started coming in, rolling in. It was pretty strong, and I got excited, so I started producing a lot more. And then the demand died out because hunting season ended. It's kind of the reality of this business is that the demand will die out because no one's hunting or doing big game hunting. You'll get maybe some folks that are camping in the spring and whatnot if you're established. At least for me, just starting out, my clientele, they're just kind of coming in the fall for a few months. So held on to stuff for a while. And then May, June, I started reaching out to folks again. And then I started getting, some purchases again. And then, in July, sold out of everything. And I just did a drop 3 days ago. I almost sold out again. So a lot of it is starting to be word of mouth. Friends telling friends. And, maybe I have 100 clients or so, but that's a lot more than what I had a year ago when I first started. So it's been pretty eye-opening and pretty humbling. I understand how the scaling works now after finishing my MBA. So I have a good problem. I cannot keep up with the demand. But that's an awesome problem to have because rather than have a product that people did not like, I've gotten some very strong feedback, and I've gotten some feedback from some, folks that have pretty good rapport in the industry, for example. So it hasn't really been a fluke. It's not just my buddies being nice to me. It's I'm getting folks reaching out because their buddies are going on hunts, and maybe that hunt's not successful, but they're enjoying the meals. And that was kind of the thing I joked about. It's like, well, hey, hunting's hunting. I can't help it if the weather sucks or if you miss a shot or, if the animal movement isn't what you expect. But if I could bring a constant to your experience with backcountry is you're going to have a good meal at the end of the day. Because being in the military, just being out in the field it just sucks being miserable. If you have a fire or a warm meal, that goes a long way.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times in the military, when we're training, we can't even have a fire. So a warm meal goes a long way. If that meal is really good, and now it reminds you of home. And I think that's kind of where I'm hitting with my meal. Just started with, hey, I'm doing this for me, and I'm kind of conscious about what I'm going to feed myself. And after a few folks letting me know, this is pretty good, and experimenting with this while doing an MBA, I'm like, all right, hey, maybe onto something. I don't know how quickly I'll be able to grow it, but I'll be able to start slowly growing it, and I don't think I'm gonna have an issue sustaining demand from folks I've already had come in. So that's exciting because I've always enjoyed like cooking and feeding folks. Now I get to do it, for guys in the backcountry on some pretty awesome hunts, and just kind of like I get to be a part of you on that hunt, and it's pretty cool. I had a client tell me a story about his successful Dall sheep hunt in Alaska, and it was really cool to hear that story. I haven't been on a Dall sheep hunt, and it was cool to hear that story from a client, and I got to be kind of a part of that hunt with my meals in his pack. He just reordered. He's about to go to Idaho again with an elk tag. He's doing a wilderness like flying hunt. I think he has all the tags like the wolf tag, bear, mountain lion, elk, mule deer. But it's pretty exciting to have folks come back for a second or a third order. That's a very big compliment in my opinion.
Absolutely.
I've gotten to talk to a lot of cool people all across the country, folks I never would have talked to. And I think that's another thing I'm hitting with this is, I'm willing to talk to you. At least right now, I have the time. I ended up talking to a client about hunting for a while before we even get into a food orders. I think right now there's just a lot of big corporate stuff. This influencer thing. It's getting annoying. Like if you're wearing Sicko, like people don't take you seriously type of deal. And I think I could bring a sense of kind of realism, especially the way Tyler and I hunt. And I'm tying a passion into another passion. And it wasn't, I didn't try to bring a freeze-dry company online, but this is just kind of how it happened and started. Right. And this hunt we were just on in Idaho, we were actually filming a little bit of marketing for the bistro. So it was fun, kind of 2 years later to get back out there with Tyler on a backcountry hunt and talking about how like it started there, and now doing some actual like spots for this, not professional at all. We're just doing our own thing, but also that's how I want to do it, and people are, I think, relating to it. And
absolutely,
that's so I'm gonna keep doing it this way because I kind of done it, on my own for the most part, with the help of a lot of awesome friends.
Well, it sounds like you guys are having fun doing it that way. I mean, and that to me is, like with the podcast, just getting started. I'm not doing this because I care to get famous. I'm doing it because I want to, like the conversations like what we're having right now, this is fun, right? I learn a lot, get to meet good people. What connections I build through this, it just makes me a better person, and it makes the community around me better because we can help each other out, support each other, and that's huge, and it's fun. But it's kind of one of the things that stood out to me is you're talking about the warm meal, and just from my military time in the Marine Corps, in the field, being cold, miserable, hot, miserable, it didn't matter, man. Like mealtime was break time in the military, and it kind of has transferred, like probably why I gained weight easy, because I like to eat, because my mealtime is break time. Yeah. But I remember in boot camp that they would always tell you like, hey, don't think you're in phase 1, day 1. Don't be worried about graduation day 3 months from now. Just you just need to focus right now. Just get from meal to meal. Like wake up and just try to make it to breakfast. And then after breakfast, just try to make it to lunch and dinner, and then so on every day. And then eventually, before you know it, you're like, oh, dang, graduation's day is tomorrow. And that stuck with me, man. Like every day I'm just like, all right, dude, like I'm up. I just got to make it to breakfast. And Hunting is the same way. You know, I mean, I have fun hunting, but man, like a warm meal, you know, something that you know you're going to look forward to getting to if
Serious
you've been out.
challenges at times.
Yeah, you're just like,
Especially like on day 10 where you wake up and there's a frost on your tent. You know,
yep.
you don't want to get out.
Oh man.
Like last year, we were hunting, you know, down in the Gospel Hump wilderness area, which is like adjacent to the Frank Church wilderness area. You know, big steep country. We're getting rained on, like freaking cold, wet. And I was like, well, at least I got at least I'm gonna have a hot meal tonight. Like that's great. And then same thing in Alaska, man. Like that tundra, just everything that you did was wet. It's we were there in the middle of August, still snowed on us, and so yeah, cold, wet. But hey, man, like that meal, and then that transferred to like I've done a little bit of guiding and stuff, and briefly owned an outfitting business. And I remember talking to other outfitters and guides, and like, hey, man, like what's the secret? Like, there's like, hey, man, you can't always control the animals, you can't always control the weather, but you can control the food. So they're like, if the hunt's going really good, like the food level can be like fine. It can just be good. But like if you're having a bad hunt, like you're serving ribeyes, you know, like dude, you're having a bad hunt. Like let's make the food experience really really good. So
Yeah.
I always thought that was funny, man. But you're spot on, dude. A meal can like make your day a little bit better when you're having a rough one. So, you know, I just kind of wanted to get into a couple of things real quick, just while we have you. You know, I know it's late where you guys are at, so I'll just ask a couple of these questions that I think are interesting. But you and I kind of talked about this the other day, Don, is just why freeze-dried food over other options? Because I've seen some companies out there that are gotten into the dehydrated. I have my reasons why. I don't hate them, but I have my reasons why I still like freeze-dried better. Some of that's just cook time. And I just don't feel like their dehydrated food always rehydrates that great, especially like you have like the chili with the beans, and it's like the beans just never quite get there. But for you, why freeze-dried food over dehydrated?
Well, freeze dried just does a much better job of preserving long term, and and I kind of got into the food preservation because that's a byproduct of the Alaska lifestyle. The summers are very short, so you grow like big vegetables in your garden. So you gotta like can it, you know, can all this stuff. You catch a lot of salmon, you either like dry it out, turn it into jerky, smoke it, or can it, etc. And the freeze drying it'll last for 25 years if you do it properly. But the biggest thing versus dehydrating is using a higher heat over time, so it's killing you know, some of the nutritional value of that food. Yeah, you can dehydrate, you can rehydrate it, but you know you're drying it out with a dry heat, as opposed to freeze drying is a very scientific process where it's freezing it to a very cold temp, and then it's there's a vacuum pump, so it creates a vacuum, and then these heating trays have a pretty low heat threshold, so it'll remove the water molecules from the food. So all you have to do is add the water back in, and it basically keeps all the nutritional value. Now, I've never had a dehydrator for like dehydrating food, but you know, when I was doing a lot of the research for myself for Alaska, that's why I was going away from dehydrator, because I was looking at doing that. Well, maybe I would, you know, dehydrate some like beans and like noodles, and you know, bring a stick of summer sausage, and I can cook it all up with some ramen. You know, I don't care. It's just calories. But with the freeze dryer, you know, just because of having used and eaten freeze dried meals, I was like, you know, this is a no-brainer. And if I could make my own meals and it actually like worked out, you know, I was like, oh, this would be like money. And I just like thought about having my own food on like in the backcountry. I mean, that's how it started for myself.
Right.
Now, you know, there's a couple of people, and you know, you will be soon. I'll be privileged enough to have tried some of these meals that I've taken on my own hunt. I think I've done a good job of yeah, I'm not a nutritionist, but I think I've done a good job of balancing a lot of, the flavor, the ingredients, and I guess what people would call the macros. So even though some of them, may not be like 1,000-calorie meals, the reports I'm getting is that you're still feeling fueled. Maybe it's more balanced, more natural. So you're getting
Right.
It's a cleaner fuel. Maybe last longer. I mean, I got a guy who like he does 12 to 18 miles a day, in Washington,
Right.
and this is the second season he's been running it, and he's he would know. Like, he's one guy that's very honest with his feedback, and it's fueling him pretty efficiently. So we kind of use him as a litmus test. And I'm getting a range of like some of my meals have too much food in them, like biscuits and gravy. Unless you're in Alaska and you've been on your feet all day, I'm improving every batch every time I do it. Whether I'm trying to
Right.
increase the calories, I'm trying to hit that sweet spot of like perfect weight to like dollar to ounce or dollar to calorie ratio, etc.
Right.
There's not like one meal like that's built for everyone. Like the sheep hunters just want to, gonna want extremely lightweight food. The truck hunter, like, they don't care about the weight, or how calorie dense it is, et cetera, et cetera. Trying to do a range of meals, for everyone. I would like, if folks are buying my meals, they're probably just coming to me for everything. There's a lot of good offerings out there, and I think there's a surge, and you're going to continue to see a surge of small businesses starting freeze-dry companies like I'm doing. There's plenty of room in the market, and the market's growing in between preppers and just new folks just going outdoors, camping, new hunters, etc. There's just a growing demand overall. I'm just going to continue to grow this. At my own pace until I get a little bit more stability and can see where the direction is going.
Right.
From the demand projections and the feedback, everything I've already gotten in, it's trending very, very well.
Well, good deal, man.
Grow this thing
Yeah.
eventually, but I'm gonna try to do it the right way. Try to be very transparent and authentic and genuine about it too.
Yeah, and that's important, man. And kind of to touch on what you were talking about with like calories and stuff like that. I know when you and I talked, I was like, dude, calories are important to me. I mean, we talked a little bit about the calorie to dollar ratio. And, I've looked at like what makes freeze dried meals have more calories than others. And a lot of times I've noticed it's ingredients like heavy cream can really add a lot of calories and even some protein. So what I think the calorie to dollar thing, like how many calories am I getting for my dollars? But I really like how you put it as far as this, like the quality of those calories too, man. Like, are you eating empty calories that are kind of trash, or are you getting protein and fat and things that are going to really fuel you in the backcountry? So, that's really awesome, man. On that, like, just quickly, you're very competitively priced. I looked at your general like pricing on your website. You compare that to Peak or Mountain House. I'd say you're better price in Mountain House if you're going just on calorie to dollar. And then I'd say you're punching with Peak on that too, and some of your meals. But it's expensive, man. Freeze-dried food, freeze-dried meals is expensive. When you're buying some for 10 days in the backcountry, like, you're paying a bill, man. What's the, like, kind of the main driver of that cost? If like a customer's like, dude, come on, man, why are you charging me so much? Like, what's that driving cost?
Yeah. Well, with any product, you're looking at your cost of the ingredients and the cost of input and the cost of labor, and labor's an input. So in this case, you're looking at the bag, and then you have to put in the appropriate oxygen absorber in there. I have labels. I'm putting on a sticker, et cetera, et cetera. So, for me, because I'm not at a very big scale, like, my bag, is like $1.25, just with the labeling, the sticker, and all that. And then when you're looking at the ingredients and the cook time, it starts adding in. So a lot of my meals, depending on how much protein, and I've been kind of small enough that I've been experimenting with recipes and meals depending on what's on sale. As I grow, I fully expect to be able to lock in, some wholesale pricing and contracts to be able to nullify a lot of that. But that's, they call economies at scale. Anything that's just producing at a much larger level is going to give reduced pricing. The labor, man, honestly, it takes, I'm doing it all. It's taken me 4 hours to make a batch of food, and then the machine's kind of doing a lot of it. So the price of electricity, and then, washing the dishes per se, and then packaging 30 meals might take me an hour. So you're looking at, man hours, maybe 6 or 8 man hours to do like 30 or 40 meals. So the margins honestly are not that high, and unless you're a big company, like really like shelling it out, it'd be pretty hard for a smaller company, at least a startup, to like earn an honest living, an honest wage. I'm fortunate in the fact that my wife is still active duty Army, and so I'm a dependent. I get her health care and get to kind of ride that. So I don't have to scale this business like quick. Like I don't have to like force myself to do this to put food on the table for my kids per se. So it's a little easier for me to say it. But this is the reality. Like I said earlier, a lot of people aren't really buying this stuff. I'd say 6 to 9 months out of the year.
Yeah.
A new client I talked to him on the phone like 2 weeks ago. He actually told me that he had found I don't even remember the business of the company, but he had a company he really liked. He was going to go with them again. They had gone out of business. He hadn't heard they went out of business. But then he saw a review about me, and I talked to him, and I told him I'd never heard of them, but that my suspicion, would be outside of the cost of ingredients, because food is just super expensive right now, is, it could take off kind of quickly at the right time, but then all of a sudden, if no one's buying, like January, February, blah, 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 you have bills to pay. And so this is a very seasonal business. And you're really going to, I'd say, make most of your sales 3 or 4 months out of the year. And, if you had like 5 years of like projecting that or able to see that, then yeah, you could kind of make a plan and then look at the demand, you spread the demand year round, and you'll see it's going to be pretty difficult because unless you're doing some big commercial manufacturing, shelling it out and wholesaling it, it's going to be hard to meet those numbers.
Right.
But there's other ways of doing it, and kind of what I'm doing with my blueprint, that I think there's different ways you can go about it if you don't put all your eggs in one basket per se. I think freeze drying as a business in general, not just doing meals, other products, there's a lot of potential there. So you could take advantage of that and kind of produce what you need for this seasonally, and then use that production, that unused production the rest of the year to do other products. But I've been, I was doing this about 2 years, kind of testing stuff out before starting the business or the Backcountry Bistro side of things. So I've kind of tested things that don't work, that I know don't work, and things that have worked out well.
Right on, man. Dude, that's awesome. I think it's going to benefit you that you can take your time and do things the right way. I think you're just going to be onto it, man. A couple of questions, and I don't know, Tyler, are you still there? Audio? I lost visual of you. He's like, I'm done. I'm in Florida. I'm going to bed. But while we wait for him, man, like just kind of a couple more directed freeze-dried food things. But, you know, and even if he comes back, I'll ask him because I kind of wanted to get his opinion. But I'm interested to see, man, like no matter, there's like Peak does it less than Fruit Mountain House, but they both do it, man. My guts get tore up by the end of, not very, well, it doesn't even take me very long, a day and a half of freeze-dried food, and I'm making a mess of poor Mother Nature when I'm out in the woods. So, like, is that just a byproduct of freeze drying, or is that an ingredient thing that you don't notice with your personal meals?
Man, I'll be honest. I don't notice it with my personal meals, and you know, I know what it's like eating MREs a lot, but with my meals, no. Now I can't speak on the other bigger companies, but when I look at the ingredients and stuff, a lot of it is kind of the same stuff, and that may just be, you know, a byproduct of like big like commercial, you know, industrialization, you know, production. So in order to like, you know, keep it clean, you have to be below a certain threshold.
Right.
I don't know because I haven't like researched that yet.
Gotcha.
Because I don't have any interest of even getting to that scale because.
Right.
The way I see it, like if I could just like kind of keep this going, like pause time and just like move this business along to see like where it's gonna go. Eventually, I'm gonna hit like a threshold where I'm gonna lose quality. It's just bound to happen with any production method increasing. At that point, you decrease quality, but you're able to increase your supply exponentially. Or you do maybe like a franchise type method where like you just, okay, this is like your production cap, and now you're going to start the next factory or whatever, and you can start smaller, but like, so now you've already like you know what your cap is to keep maintaining quality, and so you're able to kind of grow in this franchise model, and that's how I would see this happening.
Right.
It'd have to, you know, become pretty simple, pretty streamlined. But I like to look at Chick-fil-A as an example. I mean, they're, you know, they're healthy. They source very well. They have an awesome supply chain. I mean, they just, it's a well-oiled machine.
Right.
You know, you have a good business model. You have good, clean ingredients. If folks like it, you can kind of keep it going. And this is freeze drying as a business is, you know, the machine is like your production method.
Right.
Just like brewing beer, because I'm a home brewer, so like I know how to brew beer. But like, you know, brewery, your beer is like, you know, 2 to 3 weeks at a time. It's fermenting in a fermenter, you know, and you're not accessing it. And then, you know, then it's done. You have all the supply, and you know, whatever you sell it, and based off your demand, you tear that up, tear that down, etc. It's kind of the same thing with a freeze dryer, or if you had a restaurant without like a front staff, you know, it was just the kitchen,
Right.
and then you had like some freeze dryer. So it's a different like business model, but you do have to know and understand like what goes into freeze drying, because like there's certain things you can't freeze dry.
Mm-hmm.
They just won't. So the food will go bad. So you have to understand that side of it.
Yeah.
Right. And
Right.
I've been doing it long enough that, you know, my meals, like, they taste pretty good. They're not, I don't think they're tearing up guts.
That's good,
Nothing
man.
from what I'm hearing, at least.
And I think you probably would hear about it too. You know, and just on the ingredient thing, man, like the healthy, you know, less processed type ingredients, man, like there's a market for it, right? Guys and gals out there, you know, one of the reasons that we talk about being hunters these days, like one of the main themes, it's always been put food on the table, but now everyone's like, oh, you want to talk about organic food? What's more organic than a deer or an elk that's been living in the mountains? So on that clean ingredient, like I think you're spot on. I think you just having good ingredients is going to be an appeal to people. What about you have a facts page on your website that I looked through, but for the listeners, what about things like you know, gluten-free or low-carb meals? Do you have any aspirations in the future of looking into those, or you just kind of like, man, I'm going to focus on what I got going now and try and be good at that?
Yeah, I have to focus, because initially I was talking to a lot of folks, gluten-free, and I have some stuff that I guess is gluten-free or as close to it, um, but nothing that I could produce like just enough to make it worth it. I'm not that
Right.
big enough yet, but I have like tested a few recipes, and I'm not going to forget about that market segment because as I grow, as I'm able to do that, one of the things I'm trying to do with this business is, hey, what do you guys want me to do? Are there specific recipes, types of food? If I can experiment, if I can make it taste good and freeze dry it well, I'll bring it out. The gluten-free stuff is a little difficult just because of on a larger level, the segregation of ingredients
Yep.
is
You're
one of
gonna
the
need a whole
biggest
different
things.
machine, right? Like you can't just for
Yeah,
certified.
yeah. So, like, just to
Yeah.
scale purposes, I'm not there yet, but I have a couple ideas, and and a few things that I think will be considered, totally gluten free. Then at a certain point, I have a dedicated machine for it. What
Sweet,
you were
man.
saying earlier, though, comment about you kind of hit it on the head. One of the things I've thought about is, backcountry hunters, the most serious hunters, you guys, going out for 7, 10, maybe 14 days in extreme case, to get your protein for the whole year. Why are you gonna skimp on like your 10 or 14 days of food? Again, I don't claim to be a nutritionist or a chef, but it's working for me and it's working for a lot of people, and I'm trying to um, cook as clean and healthy as possible, which kind of goes hand in hand with the science of freeze drying. And um, I think I don't need to pack in, I guess, a bunch of extra calories and stuff. Maybe my meals are only like 600, 700, some of them, but it's probably gonna, I'm not, don't quote me on this, everyone's different. Um, so far from, because this is one of the things that I think about and I'm asking folks, and they're feeling for the most part pretty well fed. The exception being the guy who went on a adult sheep hunt, and that's you're doing a lot of
Right.
hiking on that.
Yeah, that's kind of like next
Um,
level, man.
yeah, yeah. So, and then some of the meals he had, were some of my lower calorie meals. So I think I have a good range. Yeah, some meals are going to be, less, low, hopefully low carb, gluten free. But a few of these meals are just they're not really selling, or I thought there'd be more interest. So it's kind of like, hey, I'll shelf this. Maybe I'll like bring it back later. We get big enough, but
Good
um,
deal, man.
yeah, it needs to be a combination of, you know, I don't want it to be BS, like filled with BS. I want it to taste good and be reasonably light for the calories you're getting and for the value.
Right. Well,
Tyler, he had Backcountry Bistro this entire hunt, this go around. 2 years ago, he just had a few meals,
right.
but this time he made a full order, so now he's
So
back.
Tyler, now that you're back, and this will kind of, I think we'll end after this here shortly because I know it's getting so late over there, and we've been going for a bit, but and I think we're going to end up having to revisit with another show, and I'm kind of excited about that possibility. But I had asked him, man, like, dude, and this isn't like I'm not knocking on any one brand. I've eaten a lot of Mountain House and I've eaten a ton of Peak. Mountain House tears my guts up really fast. Peak tears my guts up not as fast, but eventually will catch up to me, man. And I don't know if you had that same experience with those freeze dried food brands. But what was your experience with Don's food, man? Is Backcountry Bistro friendlier on your gut?
Man, after eating MREs for 10 years, I feel like I can take it all. Like Dawn's food is, it's, it, I didn't have any issues with it, but I don't really have issues with the other brands either.
Okay, gotcha,
I
man.
would
Maybe it's
say
a
that,
personal problem.
yeah, no, I think my gut's just been torn up over the years of eating, if it's not
Right.
MREs, it's like defact food or whatever else. So, yeah, I haven't really had that issue.
Good deal, man. Well,
Are you crapping through a screen door with my meals?
No, because I take Metamucil on my trips.
Yeah.
I don't know if you
There you
remember or
go.
not. Dawn's making fun of me because I'm buying these Metamucil packs at
Oh
Walmart before I
yeah.
head out to Idaho, and I'm like, dude, I'm telling you, it's going to change your life, and you're going to be asking me for these like by day 5 or 6.
Oh man.
Dude,
And no, man,
Metamucil
like
and Imodium. That's what I learned in Alaska, man. I was having a rough time, and my buddy was like, "Dude, you need some here. I always bring this in the field, Imodium AD." And I was like, I took it, man. I'm like, you're a lifesaver. So that goes with me in my pack every time I go in the backcountry now. It's in my little boo boo kit. But yeah, well, shoot,
don't those
guys.
two counteract each other? Doesn't one stop you up and the other one is like a
Well,
laxative?
so my main problem has been the opposite of the need for Metamucil, man. Like it's crapping through a screen door, I think is what Don said. So,
Yeah.
when I was in Alaska, man, I couldn't trust a fart after like day 5. And, yeah, so TMI for the listeners, but it's good, man. We're real here. And yeah, dude, my buddy's like, yeah, take Imodium with you. And, so far I haven't had to take any of it that I put in my pack, but I definitely carry it now. Along with like the cold medicines and things like that. So it's like if you get into a
Yeah.
pickle with being sick, you can kind of try to stay alive for the rest of your hunt. But
Yeah, it's good to
yeah,
have in your back pocket for sure.
yeah, man. Well, guys, I've really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed. I didn't even know we were going to talk about Alaska, but that just always gets me excited. Like I said, I think that's my favorite place other than Idaho. Um, I always tell people like I have kind of a long term dream of living up there someday. But anyways, yeah, so thanks for your guys' time. I'll let you guys get going now since you're on the East Coast. It's late. Don needs to get rest because he's got his kiddos to wake up with in the morning. But any concluding thoughts from you guys on anything we talked about today? Anything you want to leave with the listeners? And then obviously we want to know where to find Backcountry Bistro and meals and how to follow you guys.
Sure, Tyler.
Yeah, sure. All right, Bistro 6.
Yeah.
No, this is my first podcast. Thanks for having me on. I had a great time meeting you, Thomas, and hanging out. And thank you for your service because, hey, man, you're a ground pounder, and what you did was hard. And uh, thank you for what you've done. But I had a great time here with you tonight. We didn't even talk about our Idaho hunt, really. So yeah, we need to come back on and talk about that. But
Absolutely.
Phase
that's all
2.
I got.
Yeah, that's actually that's my plan, man, and I'm glad that we spent a lot of time talking about Backcountry Bistro. I think it's really important. That's kind of why I connected with Don, or Don connected with me rather. So yeah, I think we'll do when I get back from my hunt, because then I'll have some field experience with Backcountry Bistro meals. Man, I'd love to just compare notes on elk hunts and food experiences, and I think that'll
Yeah.
make a great show when I
too.
get back. So
That'd be
yeah. Don, concluding thoughts, brother.
Yeah, well, cool. I like what you're doing, and thanks for having us on. And for any of your listeners or anyone out there that wants Backcountry Bistro, I just ask that you be patient with me because it's going a lot quicker than I thought it would go. I'm humbled by that, and I would love for everyone to have Backcountry Bistro in their packs. But the reality is, where I see this going, is that's going to take some time. So I'm going to be working on building the brand over the next year because my wife is active duty and it's coming up on order. So we're going to be moving. We don't know where to yet. We'll find out here in the next month or two, and then we're going to be moving this summer. So I'm going to be going to a subscription model with early adopters, and by that is folks that have already purchased my product, because I'm only going to be able to sustain so many folks. I'm not sure what the subscription model looks like yet, but it'll be short term. It'll be to get the early adopters, my kind of initial wave of clients who kick this off, their chance to get their meals for the fall, for next fall, and till I can reestablish. And but after doing this for about a year, it's very clear that Backcountry Bistro is here to stay. A lot of people want it, and I want nothing more than to feed more folks in the backcountry on some pretty awesome hunts. And I think it brings community to the table, because that's another thing we didn't talk about. We could it could be the theme of the next podcast, is a community part of it, and just bringing folks around, having a warm meal around the fire. I think this society needs a lot more community, and doing these podcasts is a way of doing that these days. And come back after your hunts and talking about how your meals went, then we could share that. And as I do this, we have a Backcountry Bistro community page on Facebook that you can join. We have an Instagram page, and we're going to start kind of slowly showing some content. Just, hey, this is what we're doing. Be very transparent, authentic. But yeah, we're going to end up moving, and I'll hit the ground running with the bistro. And I think there's some big things destined, and Tyler and I are going to continue to try to do a 2-week annual hunt, and we'll use that for marketing. And we may have some surprises with YouTube and some filmed hunts and other stuff. But it's just going to be very real. Not fake, not influencers. Just a couple of guys living the American dream, a couple of vets that just enjoy our fellowship in the outdoors. And looking forward to the next elk hunt. I still have to scratch that itch, and we'll talk about the hunt next podcast. I got real close to a big bull that we hunted.
I can't wait. Yeah,
for a while.
I'm excited to get talking to you guys about the hunts, man. And you just nailed it, dude. It's about being real. I really can't wait for to see what you guys are gonna do. I mean, that's part of like I say in the intro to the show, this is real stories from real Americans, and that's what I want to do, man. I want to build community, and not just of veterans and first responders like us, but just really anybody that's out there hunting, fishing, backpacking. I mean, if you're doing something that you're passionate about in the outdoors, I want to hear from you. I want to connect you with good people. I want to get you connected with people that are serving, great products like Backcountry Bistro, and take care of each other and spread the good word. I think is huge. And, my hope too is that like stories of service and veterans that are getting out and making it in the outdoor industry. Like you guys are doing it for fun and, and having a good time with it. But, dude, being an entrepreneur is, I think, one of the most American things you can do. I absolutely love entrepreneurship. I think it's awesome. It's American, and I don't think it gets any more American than being a veteran, serving your country, and then going out and starting a business because you're building a legacy for your family, for your kids, and that's a beautiful thing to do. So good work. Appreciate you guys. So yeah, well, we'll call it, and then stay tuned, folks, because I think that as long as Don and Tyler are good with it, we'll record when I get back from my big trip here next week, and we'll talk about elk hunting and mule deer and Backcountry Bistro and community and all those good things. So I'm glad.
Make sure you have some good reviews.
Oh yeah, man, we'll have reviews, and I already have to take a lot of pictures of my response-ready medical stuff, which is a whole thing I could get into, but they're buddies of mine that have a medical equipment company. So I'm going to be giving them some content for taking their, trauma supplies in the backcountry. So I will include you guys in the photo op. So yeah, you'll get some pictures, some good pictures of your food by the river or up on the mountain, or if we're lucky, next to a dead animal. So
I like it.
Yeah.
It'll be good.
Yeah.
All right, fellas.
Y'all
Well,
be safe.
yeah, we'll do. We'll talk to you guys hopefully soon, but I appreciate it. Go get some rest. Thanks for staying up late with me.
All right, man. Take care.
All right, guys.
Go
You too.
Go get
Take
a
care.
bowl.
Thanks again. And if this resonates with you, I want to welcome you to the tribe and encourage you to share this podcast with your friends. Hit subscribe and follow us on Instagram at Pursuing Freedom Outdoors. And if you or someone you know has a great story about life or the wilderness, I want to share it. You can shoot me a message on Instagram or email me with all inquiries and questions at thomas@pursuingfreedomoutdoors.com. That's Thomas, THOMAS, at pursuingfreedomoutdoors.com. Until next time, get out there, get after it, and pursue freedom in the outdoors.